Hello, everyone, and welcome to our teaching kitchen session today. Once again, I'm Madeline. I'm one of the oncology dietitians here with the American Oncology Network. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen. Again, we see each other. These are always such fun parts of our role here as oncology dietitians. We get to actually cook with you and be, show you guys our kitchen space and how we prepare food for our loved ones. Today we have a really easy, simple recipe, but one that I feel like is just, again, becoming more and more needed as schedules get busy, treatment schedules, in and out of the house, need something on the go. So we're going to actually make homemade granola bars today. And it might seem scary, especially if you're like me, you're not a big baker, but rest assured, there's no baking involved. It's actually just a mix. So we got a nice bowl, press, we're gonna get a pan out and freeze. And freezing just takes about an hour, and then you can cut them up and store them in your fridge. Some recipes actually up to a month in an airtight container. So helps, hopefully keep it more whole foods focused. And you're not buying as maybe ultra processed bars as some of the options in our grocery store. And you can control, what's in them. So if it's a month where you're not wanting a lot of fuss, you can keep them pretty basic. Or, if you want to, you probably see a lot of different ingredients out here. We've got things like dried fruit. We've got nuts and seeds that we can add in. And then, just some other fun things, cinnamon, coconut flakes. So we can keep it as basic or as kind of complex as your taste allows. So let's get started here. Just for, kind of orientation, when you're getting these going, you want to get a bigger bowl than what the recipe seems like it's going to need. And that's just from like a kitchen standpoint. I think it's a lot easier to mix it that things aren't kind of spilling out on you. So we're going to start with our melted peanut butter. And so it's about 3/4 cup of melted peanut butter. And I went ahead and just put this in the microwave before starting the call. So I'm going to dump this pre-portioned peanut butter into my bowl here. So you got 3/4 cup of peanut butter. And then you're going to do about a cup and a half of rolled oats. I like to eyeball, so if you need to still use a measure, go for it. But I'm gonna save mine for our honey component. So this is gonna be about 1, and then we'll do about a half. And these are all flexible too. You may find based on the other ingredients that you're adding in, this is just not really even useful. And so you kind of go off of feel, especially if you make it a couple times. We're going to do a half a cup of honey. So I have some local Michigan honey here, which is where we're at, but feel free to use whatever honey you prefer. I also have some maple syrup here, which also could have been an option if that's something that you prefer the taste of, or maybe it's just what you have. You don't have honey in the house. You can sub that out pretty easily. Now we're going to do something a little bit of a protein boost here. And as dietitians, if you talk to one of us, we're always looking for ways to kind of boost the protein content, especially, in preparation for treatment, during treatment and after treatment when protein needs are so high. So sometimes it's nice to have just a pretty good, solid, simple ingredient protein powder. I'm actually going to use a vegan one today. It's made from almonds. And this is a half cup, and that's what our recipe calls for. So we're going to do about a half a cup of extra protein just to kind of mix into it. And then the recipe does call for about a 1/4 cup of chocolate chips, which I am going to add in, but I'm going to do half just because I want to make some room for some of these other ingredient boosters. So I think I'm going to do some raisins. These are golden raisins. Add a little sweetness, with our fruit versus maybe our chocolate. So it's still very much going to work. And then I am also going to add in some hemp seeds. So just for reference, about 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds is an extra 9-10 grams of protein. And granted, this will be dispersed throughout the whole recipe, so it's not per bar serving. But as you see here, we kind of keep going with just a spoonful here, a spoonful there. These are pumpkin seeds. This is going to be probably about 8 grams of protein per 1/4 cup, which that kind of looks about right. So we're kind of stacking in these protein boosters. I've also got some chia seeds here that I'm gonna throw in. And again, if you don't have any of this stuff, that's fine. You can just keep it pretty much to the recipe and then add the add-ins as you like. I think that's kind of where I'm going to keep it today. I have some dates in here, but I think I'm going to see how this stirs up, and if I need some extra, we can add them later. But that's pretty much it. You just kind of get this nice mixture going, and then I'll show you the magic here. So one thing that's really nice about recipes like these are that you can share these with people who are asking for ideas on what to bring you, or if there's family, church, neighbors who just want to offer something, sending recipes like this, they're very approachable, even for those of us who, again, don't bake, don't cook as much as we like to. So and you still end up with a very nutrient dense, healthful option that will help you during this time, and keep you nourished even on the go. All right, well, that's actually turning out pretty good. I'm not sure if you can see in there, but it's almost like kind of like a cookie dough. Our peanut butter's mixing up nicely. Yeah. And now if this was a little too runny, that's where maybe we could add more of these dry ingredients in and kind of get it a little bit more dough-like like this. If it were too dry, there's times where maybe it is a little bit nice to have a extra splash of maple syrup or honey or melted peanut butter, to kind of get it all, all together. And now that I say that, yeah, I think we're doing pretty good. So next step, if you want to get just a regular glass container, I have just I think a 9x13, and I pre-cut a piece of parchment paper, because you do want these to, not stick. And so parchment paper is a great way to do that. So I'm just gonna kind of push this in here. And I've got a folded part because you're going to see next how I flatten them. So it's nice to have a little bit longer because we can fold it over and kind of flatten it when we put it in the freezer. And then you're ready to kind of cut, and they're all even. So I'm just going to dump this right into my parchment paper. And again, because the parchment paper is non-stick, it avoids having to, grease your pan like you would if you were baking. I'm actually going to start with my hands because it's fun. But you could, use a back of a measuring cup if you would prefer to do that. That kind of gets these, down just initially. And then you can fold. I'm going to grab a towel real quick. And if you have rocks around like I do, or even just like the something heavier than a measuring cup, just take something and kind of flatten it to the best of your ability. If you want these to freeze, nice and even thickness. A nice workout for the day too, if you need to get some aggression out. All right. I think that should do it. So as you can see, we have just like a nice thin, kind of flat layer of your protein bar. So I think what I am going to do is I'm going to go a little bit back on my word. And I think this would be nice to kind of sprinkle some things on top, maybe just a little bit of extra, pizzazz flair. This is flaked coconut. So I put some dried dates and some coconut. I'm just going to give it one more push. And then this would go in the freezer for about an hour. let's say I just took these out. I'm sorry I didn't prep these for you guys. I should have thought about that a little bit ahead of time. But once they would come out, you would actually just take this entire parchment paper out, set it on your cutting board, and then if you can get a knife, all you would do is fold this or peel this back. I'll move these so you guys can see. You have this nice little, kind of flattened cake here, and you would just cut right along, make some nice little, rectangles for you. So I got 4 rows and then cut in half. So I've got about 8 bars. Now this recipe, just as is a little over 330 calories per bar. And I think it was about 11 grams of protein. But as you saw, we dressed it up pretty easily, pretty quick too. And just roughly guesstimating, at least protein per bar is probably closer to 15 grams and a lot higher in calories. So if you're someone who is more of a caregiver making these for a patient, maybe use it as a treat or a mini meal for you. But they're certainly meant to be high calorie, high protein, which is what our patients need. They need that extra compact energy, something that's going to get them through, all of the, the extra demand that's being put on their body. So hopefully this was a nice, quick, practical recipe for you to make at home or to share with those who want to take care of you. So once again, thank you for joining me in my kitchen. I'm Madelyn. I'm an oncology dietitian with the American Oncology Network, and I'm gonna get these guys in the freezer right now. So thank you so much.